Welcome to the fresh and vibrant airwaves of the Pride and Promotion podcast. Strap in and turn up the volume because you've landed on the podcast that's setting the bar for the most dynamic and inclusive marketing conversations. Join your host, Joseph Federico, as he prepares to dive into the world of marketing with an inclusive twist where we spotlight the LGBT community and celebrate the power of diversity. Get ready to be motivated as we bring in some of the most influential LGBT entrepreneurs and marketing trailblazers who are reshaping the industry with bold vision and inclusive values.
Hi, everybody. I am Joe Federico. Welcome to another episode of the Pride and Promotion podcast. This evening, I have a wonderful guest. We met online on social media, which is, part of the community, but also why we're here on the Pride and Promotion podcast, Dr. Andrew Rimby. He is host of the Ivory Tower Boiler Room podcast and the Arts and Organization. Andrew, I'd like you to introduce yourself and welcome to our show. How are you tonight?
Oh, I'm so good, Joseph. Thanks for inviting me onto your show.
My pleasure.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful meeting you. Like a year and a half, 2 years-ish?
Almost 2
Feels
years,
like 2 years.
Summertime. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was wonderful, recently in the fall having you on Ivory Tower Boiler Room to talk about Halloween and, your interest and love of American Horror Story. So
New
yeah.
Orleans, yeah.
New Orleans, which I still need to go to. So I'm excited to just dig into all things Pride and Promotion with you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. So we're gonna dig right in to both, being prideful and promoting ourselves. As a professional, how did you start the podcast? I know that's evolved. Been following you even longer than 2 years with your podcast and on social media. Again, that's where we met. A very powerful tool called Instagram. Everybody's aware of that. But how did you evolve your show from humble beginnings to where you are today?
Yeah, so the story has gotten tighter and tighter the more I've told it, which is good for all of your listeners.
That's a plus.
Yes. So during the pandemic, summer of 2020, I was just really in need of literary conversations, finishing my PhD, really not finding those in-person opportunities. And I decided that I kept not watching, but I was binge watching Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and Schitt's Creek. But I was binge listening to podcasts and doing work at the same time and realizing what a great tool podcasting is for multitasking. So I then found a love of literary podcasts, but then I realized there was really a lack of both academic first, but especially LGBTQ and queer male oriented cultural podcasts. So that's why I then decided to start with academic and queer male literary conversations, since my PhD is in 19th century American and British literature.
Mm-hmm.
And then the podcast, as you know, because you've been on it twice, that's now 3.5 years ago is when the podcast started. 3.5. And it now has gone into a new renaissance, which is I've had on New York Times writers. I've expanded it to Broadway. Basically, I've done any type of topic that I would have taught in the college classroom, but I turned from being a college academic to a public academic. So that's really that journey. And then recently, within the summer to the fall, I started doing writing consulting, so college admission essay editing. I edited a grad student's thesis, so I can do editing projects. I've worked on small businesses on Long Island and doing on the ground social media podcast / marketing advice for them too. So that's been good as well.
We're going to start with the pride portion of the Pride and Promotion podcast. You're very prideful. You are certainly a beacon in the community, not only in Port Jefferson, but, on social media. You're fabulous. You have such an excitement within you that certainly is exuded on social media, certainly out in public, on your social media platforms. But the pride aspect, right? Mm-hmm. Not many of us are prideful in the community, in my opinion, at least for myself. And we've talked, about this on your podcast twice, more so the first one than the second one. How do you exude pride? How did you first find pride? Number one, right?
Mm.
And then how do you weave it into your personal life now that you're a public figure, but also into your podcast and your business?
Yeah.
Like,
Of
where
course,
did that?
yeah. I'm just trying to register that I'm a public figure, but okay.
Well, yeah,
No, but
take pride in that too. Come on.
well, thank you, Joseph. As are you, of course. I love your social
Thank
media
you.
posts. It
Thank
gets
you. Thank
me
you.
energized as well. And I think that's something to just start right there is realizing the impact that we do have as content creators, and specifically like queer male content creators, is you are having an audience, whether it only be that same 10 people. That is 10 people who are excited to see your fitness post or your journey, or that you're about to start a writing project. They
Hmm.
really are watching, and it really means a lot that your authenticity shines through. So I start there first, which is always being authentic in the social media space. I'm not using filters of like changing my body. I mean, I just don't think it's a healthy image even for myself, because
Sure.
I'm not going to live up to the GQ model Andrew Rimby, who I'm changing myself into. But
Right.
so I say authenticity, finding my pride though, back to that question that you asked. I would say I feel like I lost a sense of my identity in terms of feeling that I could be very authentic during my PhD program. So it was 9 years that it took me to get my PhD. And I would say, like, halfway through, I was so hard trying. And this isn't because of anyone at the university. This is something I think we put pressure on ourselves,
Hmm.
especially in the LGBTQ community. But I was trying so hard to be in this like cookie cutter mold of what it meant to be an academic that I really didn't know what it meant to be Andrew Rimby, an openly queer male academic, and embracing my innovative skills, because I was innovative even at the beginning of me entering the PhD program. But
Sure.
the pandemic really did allow for me to sit with creating. And like that started with the podcast. And I'm so excited for your journey with having a podcast. It does mean a lot
Mhm.
when you have these conversations and then people reach out to you and say, wow, I listened to your episode with Joseph about coming out, and I now have found myself in that, and like the process I went through. Or even I've had people comment to me about a book or a movie or what have you that I've
Mhm.
discussed. And they said, you've completely changed my mind about this, or I didn't think of it that way. And it really is, everyone is always being an influencer. And it doesn't mean that you have to be an influencer with a product or a brand. It can
Correct.
just mean we are changing each other's minds, and we should be using media tools to amplify and support our local communities, and specifically support, being openly gay and authentic. I mean, that's how I weigh in on this.
Yeah, and that's true too, because most of us, again, speaking from experience, right, going through my transformative journey the past 2 years plus, and we've spoken about that, you
Yeah.
inspiring me, vice versa, inspiring people within the community, but as young gay men,
Mhm.
but broadening that spectrum, the rainbow, the LGBTQ plus community, we really don't show up, or we've been taught societally to not show up as ourselves from the beginning.
Mhm.
So that right there, I think, kind of quenches the prideful aspect, because we were taught, again, getting a little heavier here, essentially to be embarrassed of what pride could mean to us. The operative
Well,
word being could.
and being gaslit, right? I
And
mean,
being
I've come
gaslit,
to
correct.
terms of like things that were said to me that people have been so conditioned, um, who aren't LGBTQ, that there's a certain way of doing things. And this goes not just for your identity. I think it goes for um, the exciting new creative collaborations, like us even being together, of people coming together and realizing we need to do this as a community. And that
Correct.
doesn't just mean as an LGBTQ community, it means as wherever you go get your coffee, wherever you go to the library, like we all need to know what each other's doing, because then we can help support and amplify, because we need that help right now. We need that pride right now. Within the next few months, we need, a breath of fresh air and excitement and people who you can feel supported by. And I think that I'm willing to be so open right now. I'm willing to, take it on the chin, so to speak, because I've now gone through the process of the detractors or someone who's going to critique me. It doesn't bother me anymore. It used to really bother me. Like if you talk to me when I was in my PhD experience, like even 5 years ago, I felt like everything was always a fire drill in my mind. Like everything felt like it was the end of the world. And I look back and I think, wait, why weren't you just focusing on your happiness and people who enjoyed the work you do? So now I feel like I can actually enjoy the work I do because I'm living so authentically my own journey.
You're living your truth, you're living in pride, and there's power in that. Also realizing where you came from, where you began, right?
Mhm.
Up to in your personal and professional life now and beyond, because you're making an impact. We're making an impact, right?
Yes.
But we need to be supporting each other within the community through platforms like this, podcasts, right? Social media platforms, working with AI, working when, Pride coming up in just a few short months. We need to be coming together more as a community and utilizing our resources, which has actually been a common theme and thread throughout all of these my podcasts to date. Utilize your resources. We're doing this right now, having an open platform, speaking about pride and what that means to us. Hopefully, with somebody listening, being impactful and having them becoming inspired to become more prideful in their own lives as well. So there's that.
Exactly. I mean, you said it all, Joe.
That's it. Drop the mic. End of the episode. Wrap up. Right. But how are you utilizing, with that being said, Andrew, how are you utilizing social media to, to have it become more of a platform that's specifically for the community, to get the word out about your works, right? You're evolving. You have this renaissance that you're going through again with your, social media and becoming more of a beacon, in Port Jeff and beyond. But how are you utilizing social media specifically, and what would you do different, and on which platforms, to get the word out more about what you're doing and for the community itself?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I mean, I think that, and I see this with all of your, social media and marketing Maven posts. And I have a social media calendar. So I would start with that, which is I actually have a Google document that I'm sure you do too. But I have dates. This is the kind of content I want to put out. This is me doing a fitness post. This is me doing something about a book I'm reading. This is about a guest that I'm having on. This is me re-releasing Gregory Maguire and talking about Wicked, promoting events I'm doing like reality TV trivia. I mean, I want to share my walk in Port Jeff Village. All of this is me being authentic and spreading the word about arts and cultural things I do, but you do have to be organized. I've had to really learn that each social media platform targets a different audience, targets an LGBTQ audience. Don't get me wrong. Each one
Right.
does, but each does it in a different way. So for TikTok, I've really had a lot of fun actually now with TikTok, especially after now, paying for CapCut, which lets me do all those fun captions and
Right.
music and everything. But TikTok, I can put up a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills clip and it'll really excite people, or I can put clips from fellow travelers because I have an episode about that coming up. Even I can be eating something and talking about that I was on Joseph Federico's Pride and Promotion podcast. But if I'm on Instagram, I know, okay, well, I'm probably going to share more collabs with businesses because, TikTok doesn't let you collaborate with businesses. So it's
Right.
know what your social media channels limitations are, know what it's best at. Like LinkedIn, I'm not putting clips of the reality TV housewives. Like it just doesn't. But I did share about my reality TV event and how many businesses were part of it in Port Jeff, because to me, LinkedIn is your networking tool. It's not where people want to go watch video content, you know.
Right.
But you can share, of course, podcasts that you're a part of. And like I've talked with you, I know extensively, Joseph. LinkedIn has amazing groups. So like I'm part of, like I started an LGBT podcast group.
Mm-hmm.
Um uh LGBTQ. I'm not leaving the Q out. I
Right.
don't want someone to say like, why did he not
This is
say
all
Q?
inclusive, folks. Right, right.
All inclusive, all inclusive. But also there's like LGBTQ marketing. So I think with LinkedIn, you have to really join those groups. And YouTube, I love putting out podcast episodes. I love putting out like a portion of it and then linking it to my Patreon. Um, I like featuring my sponsors on YouTube. I love YouTube Shorts because I can just go from TikTok to Instagram to YouTube. Like I always say, do like a 1, 2, 3 rule. Don't do a one. Then I went, to get a smoothie 20 minutes away. And then I decided to go to Barnes and Noble. Now I'm at 2. Like, just get it all done. And then, go relax. But yeah,
Correct.
my limitation. I didn't say that. Okay. I'm going to be good at saying my limitation. I would say a limitation that I now am trying to get out of my own way is about the number of followers. Because I feel like I had done an entertainment consulting job in the summer.
Mhm.
And I think because I'm sure you've had these before. I thought that it was like hitting my head against the wall when I did it, because it did get so stressful because of a difference in communication.
Sure.
But I would now say to that person, thank you so much for what I thought was such a negative experience. Actually taught me so much about myself and what my boundaries are, but also how I can better communicate, and that it's not all about the glitz and glamour, because like this person is someone who's like in the public eye, but also would say about how many people know who they are. It was like I'm not trying to put down the person, but it was like a very
Here's the
Hollywood
thing. Yeah.
image.
Yeah.
Yes. And what I learned is, okay, well, it doesn't really matter if you're buying your followers and you have 100,000 if no one's engaging with your content. But for the longest time, I was like, I need to have this many followers. This needs to go viral. And it's like, it will all happen organically if you've laid the yellow brick road and you're making your way to Oz.
I love that. That has been my go-to has with my journey since turning 40, and I'm turning 41. I don't look it, thank you very much. A lot of, creams and scrubs and well taking care of myself, which, we can get that in another episode.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to break down what you had said piece by piece from a professional standpoint. Number one, you had to have started somewhere, Andrew, right? Deciding to have the podcast, which is your platform, becoming more prideful, to hell with whatever anybody else thinks. We're in a completely different world post-COVID, right?
Mhm.
So the creative stream, especially for the queer community, especially for queer men, is a very important platform. So to help you choose your persona, right? You understand what you want to say, and that can evolve, and it should evolve. Number one, as far as your content is concerned, streamline the processes, right? Streamline, assuring you have, as you had said, a content calendar is very important for social media. If you don't have a Google Calendar, a paper calendar, a phone calendar, and I recommend at least 3 or 4 different types of calendars, one for your personal, one for your professional, and then one to mesh everything together so you don't miss a beat. And you can and you will do it on your own. It's very feasible. I know as a business owner, streamline the process so you don't forget things, but you're also not becoming too salesy within your content. Number two, and as you had said, working maybe with celebrities or working with, certain kinds of content, that too is an evolution. And it's not always about the followership. It's not always about the numbers. A lot of people that unfortunately have not worked with, not speaking ill of them, not everybody understands why they need social media or why it's so imperative in order to grow a podcast, grow a business, grow the influencer aspect of working together with a celebrity, for instance, right? The numbers are not always that important. The metrics can be important over time. So for instance, when starting with a client, it takes about 90 days, to growth. If we start tomorrow with a new client, we're not going to see results. If I track that over 90 days on a metric system, then I can show the followers versus non-followers, for instance, how many reels were viewed and when, so forth and so on. So I just want to tell our audience, and I think you understand this as well. I've been there myself. When you freak out about numbers and you're like, what am I doing? Why aren't things being reviewed? Why aren't things being shared? I guarantee people will be watching from the sidelines. Lastly, because your content has to be impactful. Your content has to be streamlined, so forth and so on. So I just wanted to break down all those aspects because you probably saw the light bulb or the wood burning out of my ears when you were saying those things. My ears, kind of like perked up when you were saying those certain aspects of social media. So that's my TED Talk. Thank you for coming.
I love it. Well, and something that I'm now trying and being embracing uncomfortability is I now am seeing the power of Instagram Live, TikTok Live,
We're just going to
like
go there.
Instagram Live. Like I just went live before I sat down with you and like actually filmed my Smash, like the Broadway musical show, podcast recording that I did. So now I'm starting to like show the podcast recording behind the scenes. I'm showing steal that idea too if you want, Joseph. I'm not, trademarking it.
I'm always listening, Andrew. Don't worry.
Yeah, but like I also like when I'm listening back to a podcast episode, I want to play it and like go live and give my own reactions to like the episode itself. And like even when your episode with me comes out with Pride and Promotion, I'm gonna go on Instagram Live and like be like, oh yeah, that's right, that resonated, and like maybe we have more to say about it, or I'll like respond with another question.
Sure.
But I think that there is a lot of opportunity in just seeing how you're creating your own channel and treating it as such, which is it's okay if 100 people aren't viewing you live. Correct. If you then can share it on your page, and then I realized, wait, I just recorded an hour of me even watching the Beverly Hills Housewives and giving my commentary. That now I don't have to record my own videos of doing like deep dive analyses because I just did it, and I can now splice it and put it in an editor and put them out as TikToks and Instagram videos.
I was just going to say that too.
Make it easy for yourself. Like don't be spending 10 hours a day trying to create social media clips.
No, I mean, you need to block your calendar out. That's what I tell my students. At least one day a week, right? At least one day a week to assure you have content created for the following week. So you can do less work the following week to get ahead for then the following week thereafter. But if you're spending, let's say, even like an hour a week, maybe 2 hours maximum when you're just starting out on a platform, a podcast, growing your persona, figuring that out, whatever that may be, what's your platform in which you want to speak, right? What's your main concern? What's your main content going to be revolve around? Remember to always be educational, which is what we're doing right now. It's that easy, having a conversation as a human being, not as a thought leader, not as this, not as that, as queer men having a conversation about promoting and becoming more prideful. Number one, right? Number two, another thing you had said, utilize your resources, as we've been talking about this entire time on the podcast. Splice things up. Go to Twitter X and share a link from your reel or your live that you had done maybe a week or so prior. Go on TikTok and share some commentary and do some splicing of the content you had recorded previously. And then you get on Instagram and you then start over again. So it's kind of like the holy trifecta of social media, to be perfectly honest.
Exactly. Well, and also something like that didn't work with that person in the summer that now I really, with my own clients, so I'll shout them out, of course, but the Soapbox, which is a bath and body boutique, that was my first marketing social media client. Shout out to Janine if she's listening.
Hey, Janine.
The
Hope you're
co-owner. Yeah,
well.
she's awesome. You would love her, Joseph. You definitely, when you come, hopefully you come to Port Jeff eventually. You
I
love
hope
this
so.
town.
Yes, we have to make that a reality. Absolutely.
Yeah, but then Crank Cycle is a spin studio owned by Denise, and then I just started working with the Port Jeff Salt Cave owned by Marcy. And something like I've even in my first consultation meeting is saying, I mean, Janine, it's happened more organically, but like I've said to Denise and Marcy is we can't be like, I want you to get out of the mindset of everything has to look, it's good that there's a certain template, but something I so admire about what you do, Joseph, and maybe this is why I was hesitant to do more Instagram lives, is
Sure.
it's okay if you don't have the ring light in the certain place. It's okay
It
if
is
a
okay.
hair is out of place. Like in the summer, what did not work with the person I was with is I couldn't even promote their Patreon because they didn't look good in their video. And I
Yeah.
said, well, then you're not going to have anyone watch your Patreon because I can't even promote it.
No, no. But that's another thing too. You made an excellent point, especially with with my students, and thank you for I have to test everything out on myself first. I've always
Yep.
done that with my students. If something is coming in, there's a new platform or a new way of doing things or a new sticker or a new trend, I always put it on myself first.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to work? Then I promote it and I teach it and I educate. If it doesn't work, it goes in the trash. We save it for another day because it could potentially come back around as another trend, another way of educating and teaching and getting better or helping people get better on camera, for instance, on Instagram Reels. There's that. But COVID, and because I started another podcast, my quick quippy marketing was my podcast and my website when COVID started. You're home, you're having a few cocktails, you want to be more creative, you want to have a platform. We were gifted, I'm going to change the script, gifted a platform, to become more creative and more prideful, at least in my opinion, for myself during COVID. COVID completely shifted and turned social media marketing on its head. It was all about the big influencers, as you had said, not calling anybody out specifically. Never want to do that. Always come at this from a very diplomatic stance. That was all about refinement and polished content. COVID turned it on its head. Mm-hmm. We want, as consumers, which is the reason why we're all in business, we're all shoveling something. Let's be honest. Tear the mask off, call it for what it is. But people want to learn things now on social media, require that. People want to be coddled as consumers. So nostalgia marketing is a huge piece in which we have to utilize within social media, number one. Number two, we have to allow people to come into the conversation, go behind the scenes. How do I really look when I wake up in the morning? How do I look when I'm going to get my hair cut? But then the magic there, which I hope, and thank you for calling this out and for recognizing this with my hard work, because I work my ass off.
Yeah.
But it's to educate and teach and to also grow the business at the same time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It has to come together in the sense where you have to bring people into that conversation. Pull that iron curtain back like you're at, the great and powerful Oz, mm-hmm. and allow them to kind of guide your content going forward, which is one of the easiest ways in which you can create content as well for yourself with your platforms.
Absolutely. Well, and one of actually my big mentors, like who she does follow me on TikTok, mm-hmm. And watches my Instagram stories, is Bethany Frankel. And when I saw that Bethany Frankel, and I've DM'd her and she's been so gracious, mm-hmm. And I'll probably put this out as a clip on TikTok and Instagram and share it with her.
She needs to come on the Pride and Promotion podcast.
I will. I will. And my Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Maybe we all can be together as like a Shark Tank type discussion. But
yes, a panel.
What I love is when I started to see her change the game, like you've really eloquently said during the pandemic, is she's going to, what is it like to go to Dollar Tree? What is it like when she has a Dunkin' coffee and she's like, giving a hot take about a new trend that's happening in business, like guerrilla marketing, and I started to realize, wait, she's pulling back the layers and she's gaining more traction than the manufactured image that's happening in scripted TV, or well,
Being
on
human. Right.
reality TV, but it's scripted.
Right.
So why is that? And that's why I look to her as she knows what's happening as I don't want to say a trend, but it's almost like she's a fortune teller. She knows what's around the corner. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to join this innovative team as well, because if she can do this to speak about women in business, then, you better believe I'm going to join the force to speak about a very openly gay male, persona, but also my identity and how I am always authentically who I am in whatever conversation I'm a part of.
Correct. Correct. But that too, she's utilizing her human aspect in her content.
Mhm.
I've been following Bethany for a very long time on all the shows, on all the reality shows, on social media, up until and including watching, clips on your end, which are inspiring, but also then refollowing her. What's her conversation look like? What's her evolution been? But she brings everything back to her brand, which is her persona, which she's built all these years prior to where she's at today. That's part of that magic, that secret sauce too, is the human element, educate and teach, right? Or predict, fortune tell, whatever you want to label that as well. And then also peel back those layers and bring everything back to your brand at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, and I think that, like you've said, people have lost an appetite of sorts. If they think that you're canned, they think that, like, of course we're all promoting. You're absolutely right. And this was something as trained as an academic slash I have a theater background, which is giving me more of that improvisational, connecting to the audience ability that I would
Right.
say I needed both. My PhD gave me the deep, nuanced knowledge of arts and culture. Absolutely. My acting slash marketing, my parents are both in business. My dad is a CPA, owns his own small business. My mother was a business high school teacher and mathematics. So I kind of always had this hive around me of always talking through ideas. So,
Sure.
like, basically, I am an academic entrepreneur, and people don't really know what to do with me. And that's why I connect to Bethany and to you, Joseph, because I do feel it is it can feel overwhelming when you don't feel like you're easily categorized, but
Right.
you're also setting new terms and really turning everything on its head and on its axis. And I do think that's where ingenuity is coming from right now. It's from the innovators, and
Mhm.
we have to trust in this current process of bringing people together creatively.
Especially in today's, not to get political, in the
Mhm.
landscape in which we're in politically currently, but also as far as pride is concerned, as well as
Yes.
promotion. If we don't bring the communities together by utilizing these platforms, our resources, then what are we really doing, Andrew?
You're just talking to, you know,
You're just talking and yelling and screaming, which most
a
people do.
niche. Yeah, you're talking to your own community, and people are patting themselves on the back. And I have learned that what excites me is when I do have academics on the podcast, or even I've had like I'm about to go to a conference at Seton Hall, and it's with all these New Jersey College English faculty members, and I'm
Right.
giving a presentation on how to create a podcast, and I'm
Amazing.
literally like giving them the tools. And it's exciting because media need academics need media. I'll put it that way.
Right.
Um, and it will make them better instructors and educators, even though a lot of them have been trained. You give lectures, you operate in an old school model. You need to like read your conference presentation from a paper. And I was kind of always against that. like there's a time and a place for me to write published work, which I do have published essays out there on
Sure.
queering Whitman. I have my dissertation, but I do think it's important when you can improv a little, like when you are more performative, like it does get people excited. Like you said, it makes me so happy to hear that when you watch my videos or reels that you get excited or you can hear like the motivation behind what I do. Like that
Right.
to me is what I'm trying to get other arts and culture figures to embrace, instead of thinking that they have to be um looking to a higher up echelon for approval,
Correct.
or even worse, in my opinion, they need to stroke their own ego because that's the only way they feel like they did a good job. Like,
And that's not the way social media rolls anymore. The
it's not
human
about ego.
No, and people will unfollow and unlike and block and share the gospel of the negativity so quickly these days. People don't want to hear the BS anymore. What I do with my students, what I've done with myself in evolution. For instance, right? Let's just pick reels because that's my specialty at the moment with my students and what I offer. When COVID hit, right before COVID hit, like Feb 2020, right? Almost 4 years ago to the day. There was this thing called, and we talked about this on one of our, kind of green screen, green room conversations before we even got on your podcast.
Yeah.
Was Instagram television, IGTV. Now it's reels and stories and lives. It evolved from that. I didn't know what that was. It came out. I was hearing a lot about it. I'm like, as the marketing maven, the guru, whatever you want to, constitute me as, I have to figure this out. My engagement was complete crap, right? Originally. I was doing still image, static images. They weren't working. I'm like, there's something to this. I wrote myself a script because I have a, background in journalism. I've been in PR. I've, run businesses in the past for celebrities and so forth. And I said, I know a lot about marketing. That's my niche. That's my persona, right? I gave a title to it, Quick Quippy Marketing, Quick Quippy Content. My engagement, Andrew, when IGTV was like just starting out, around the years? 300% in less than 6 days with my metrics on Instagram. Just by literally fumbling through a conversation with my camera in the freezing cold after work, because I wanted to come home and then watch my reality TV, watch my Southern Charm, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have my meal with my partner and then go to bed and then start again the next day, not knowing what was going to come from that. It's all about being organic. Getting on camera is so important these days on TikTok.
Yes.
Facebook Reels, as well as Instagram Reels and Lives, are so important to self-promote, but educate and teach and be human, right? Respect and celebrate the human aspect. Otherwise, you're losing out in business. So how do you feel about that? About actually getting yourself on camera and what those steps do include or are necessary in which to be successful on Instagram Reels, for instance?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say that has probably been what has made me a unicorn in academia, is so many academics are introverted, and that's what makes them such excellent writers and researchers. Again, not all academics are introverted. I'm not trying to like paint this broad brush here, but I will say so many academics, so many of those in small business, or even people who follow me on social media, they'll say, how do you feel so comfortable filming yourself? I'm like, well, I have a theater background, A.
Number one.
Yes, that's true. B, I really believe in what I'm saying. And C, I know that, like I've said to my client Janine, we can redo it. Like we can retake it, unless we're on Instagram Live. But like she's gotten more into this like QVC model of showing off all her really cool and funky bath and body products. But I do think that there is something to really challenging yourself to make sure you do, not in every video, and I know you would agree too, like, but do make sure you're speaking in some video, or especially if you're a small business, static images. And there's some accounts I follow in the area, and I love their businesses and I love their content,
Right.
except I've never seen a video with them speaking.
Or their
But
staff, right?
mhm.
Right.
Or
Mhm.
yeah, anyone who works there. And that's something that I've trained Janine in. It's something I'm training Denise at the Spin Studio and Marcy. And actually, a lot of the businesses here, I brought them together and filmed us together talking about the reality TV event. I brought together 7 businesses to donate gifts, but I also gave them consultation of promoting themselves. And I think that we need, if you're in a downtown area, I mean, I know where you are in North Jersey, like downtown businesses, they really need to come together and they need to join forces as a dynamic social media game right
Correct.
now.
Which is where that self-promotion comes in. It's
Mhm.
imperative. You're going to eventually, not tomorrow, not next month, maybe in a year, eventually, unfortunately, fail by not getting yourself on camera, not promoting yourself on social media. It takes time. You don't have to spend millions of dollars on even hiring somebody such as myself or someone like you. If we can offer, we educate through the podcast, through our own social media platforms, right? Become a beacon in our own communities by helping other people succeed, then that's the name of the game. End of story.
Exactly. I mean, that's
That's
the importance of this, is use media to amplify, whether it's I'm even discussing Saltburn, or if it's I'm bringing a group to Wicked, or
yes,
what I'm doing with my turning my dissertation into a book, which I'm currently working on getting it published, and I have interest in it. Like,
right.
I'm going to show the book proposal process on my social media. This is what it looks like. I'm about to, for this exciting college English presentation on how to create a podcast, I'm going to share tips as I'm creating this presentation and do like, every other day different tips that I use from a book by NPR about how to create a podcast. It's like things
Right.
like that, like things you're already doing, and I'm sure you would agree, Joseph. Like,
Absolutely.
don't try to think, oh, I have to hire, because I've heard this too. Someone was like, oh, should I hire this $1,000 influencer person? And I'm like, well, do they actually read your magazine? And they're like, no, they don't know anything about my product. And I'm like, then no. This
Do
just
they
does not.
align with your persona and your products and services? If not, do not utilize that influencer. That's a waste. That's a
Exactly.
waste. Yeah.
Hmm.
We can go on another 2 or 3
Yeah.
hours, Andrew. I'll certainly have you on again and again. That's a promise, but we do have to wrap up. Tell the wonderful audience that is listening and watching where they can find you on social media and find your podcast, as well as potentially hire you in the Port Jeff area.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so you can follow me at Andrew David Rimby. That's my personal. David's my middle name and my father's name. Honoring him there. He didn't have a middle name, so I guess it's nice to carry this torch.
Hey,
Um,
Dad.
yep. At Ivory Tower Boiler Room, Instagram, TikTok. You could follow me, of course, on LinkedIn at Dr. Andrew Rimby. I'm on Facebook if you want to join the Facebook community with me. And then X, I'm there too. At Ivory Boiler Room for Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and at Andrew D. Rimby for my personal one. But I have in my links and in my bios, you can listen to my podcast wherever you get podcasts. I like Spotify, but people listen a lot on Apple.
Mhm.
Um, and then I have a YouTube channel too, where I'll post a lot of the podcast episodes. And yeah, you'll also see April 7th, I have a virtual book club discussing Wicked by Gregory Maguire. It's
Right.
$4 to join. And I'm sure I'm going to be doing another TV trivia event soon. I think it's going to be pop culture at the end of April in Port Jeff Village. So if they're Long Island based, it's not too far. I had people come all the way from Oyster Bay, which is an hour away. So that
Okay.
was awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You're a font of knowledge. You're a beacon to the
Oh,
community. Thank you for inspiring me. And thanks for coming on today's podcast. Certainly appreciate it, Andrew. Everybody, I'm Joe Federico. Stay prideful and listen to another episode of Pride and Promotion Podcast coming soon. Everybody, good night, and we'll take care.
And just like that, we're putting the finishing touches on another fabulous episode of the Pride and Promotion Podcast. If today's conversation struck a chord, why not sing our praises with a quick rating and review on your podcast platform of choice? Your support is the spotlight that helps us shine and bring more folks into our ever-expanding audience. And don't forget to hit subscribe. Let's get social too. Follow us online for all the extra goodies, sneak peeks, and continued dialogue about marketing with pride and purpose. Tune in next time as we unfurl more colorful stories, champion the cause of inclusivity, and learn more from the creme de la creme of the industry. Until our paths cross again, keep pushing boundaries, stay true to yourself, and infuse every project with pride.